A woman stands before her husband's funeral pyre. The crowd gathered around her chants hymns. Is there fear in her eyes, or acceptance? No one asks, because the answer doesn't matter anymore. In a few minutes, that woman will step into the flames, next to her husband's burning body. And she will never return. This is a tradition that was practiced for centuries in certain parts of India. Its name, Sati. Today, I'm going to tell you about one of history's most controversial and tragic practices. We'll discuss how tradition took the lives of countless women, how social pressure can transform into an overwhelming force, and what we can learn from this dark page of humanity. The word Sati comes from Sanskrit and means faithful woman. But how was this faithfulness demonstrated? A woman whose husband died would burn herself at his funeral. Yes, you heard that right. The woman would be thrown, alive, onto the pile of wood where her husband's body was being cremated. Sometimes she would climb into that fire of her own will. But most of the time? By force, under pressure from her family, her village, society. And this pressure was so powerful that finding the woman's true will was nearly impossible. The roots of this ritual go back very far. Some Hindu texts describe women who were extremely devoted to their husbands choosing this path. But here's the key point. These texts don't present sati as a command. However, over time, especially in the Middle Ages, these rare examples turned into a norm, even an expectation. Particularly in upper caste families, when a woman's husband died, her becoming sati began to be seen as a way to preserve the family's honor. Historians say that the practice of sati was especially concentrated in certain regions. In Rajasthan, Bengal, and some North Indian states, this tradition was more widespread. During times of war, it was more common for soldiers' wives to become sati, because a woman living after her husband's death was perceived as a burden to her family. When a woman became widowed, her life was considered over in Indian society. She couldn't remarry, her hair would be shaved, she would be forced to wear white clothes, and she would be ostracized from society. In some regions, widows were seen as people who brought bad luck. They weren't allowed at weddings or religious ceremonies. A widowed woman had no property rights. Her husband's inheritance would pass to her sons or his male relatives. If the woman had no son, she would be completely without protection. In some cases, the woman's husband's family would encourage her to become sati in order to seize her assets. This is where sati would be presented to the woman as a kind of salvation. Brahmins would tell the woman, "You will go to heaven with your husband. You will become a goddess. Temples will be built in your name." The woman would be subjected to psychological pressure this way. And if she refused, then she would have brought shame to her family. Everyone would point fingers at her. Now imagine this. A 16-year-old girl, married off as a child, her husband dies a few years later. When her own life has just begun, society tells her, "You must die too." Perhaps the life she would live if she stayed behind would be more painful than that fire. What would you do if you were in her place? When the society you live in completely ostracizes you, when you have no options left, would you choose death or that life full of suffering? The ritual would unfold like this. The dead man's body would be placed on top of a pile of wood. His wife would be dressed in bridal clothes, adorned with jewelry. It was as if a festive atmosphere was created. Drums would be beaten, hymns would be sung. The woman would approach that pile of wood, walking through the crowd. Those around her would call out, "Sati Mata," meaning Holy Mother. The woman would be elevated almost like a goddess. But the reality was much more painful. The woman would be laid next to her husband's corpse. Then wood would be stacked on top of them, and the fire would be lit. As the flames grew, the woman's screams would rise too. But those screams would be drowned out by the drum sounds, the hymns, the shouts of the crowd. In British records, there are accounts from eyewitnesses. A British officer describes a sati ceremony he witnessed in the 1820s. The woman tried to sit up when the flames began to grow. She was writhing in pain, but the men around her pushed her back with long sticks. At that moment I understood that this woman didn't want to die. But no one was listening to her. In some cases, the woman would be drugged so she couldn't resist. In some regions, bamboo fences would be built around the woodpile so the woman couldn't escape. Some records even state that when the woman tried to escape from the fire, men would throw her back into it. How can such brutality be part of a tradition? How can a society see burning a woman alive as a sacred act? When the British came to India in the 18th century, they encountered the practice of sati and were horrified. Some British officials witnessed this ritual with their own eyes and wrote reports. Some authorities wanted to intervene immediately. But others said, we shouldn't interfere with native cultures. After years of debate, in 1829, Lord William Bentinck officially declared sati illegal. This decision went down in history as the Bengal Sati regulation. According to the law, anyone who helped perform sati would be tried for murder. Some conservative Hindu leaders rose up, saying this was interference with their religion. But at the same time, many reformist Indians enthusiastically supported the ban. Pioneer figures like Raja Ram Mohan Roy argued that sati was not part of true Hinduism, that it was an atrocity committed against women. The ban came, but did the practice end? No. Especially in rural areas, sati cases continued for years. Throughout the 19th century, there are hundreds of documented cases. Even in the 20th century, news would emerge from time to time. In 1987, an incident in the village of Diorala in Rajasthan shook all of India. An 18-year-old young woman named Roop Kanwar became widowed after being married for 8 months. Her husband died from a sudden illness, and Roop Kanwar became sati at his funeral. She burned alive, but this incident couldn't be quietly swept aside. Because it was 1987 now. There were televisions, newspapers, human rights organizations. The incident became a national headline. Thousands of people flocked to Diorala village, but these people didn't come to protest, they came to celebrate Roop Kanwar's sacrifice. They erected a monument where she became sati. But at the same time, investigations began. Did Roop Kanwar really jump into the fire of her own will? Or was she forced? Witnesses said that the woman cried during the ceremony, that she resisted. Some claimed she was drugged. Her family defended that Roop voluntarily became sati. The trial went on for years. The result? No one was convicted, but this incident awakened a new consciousness in India about sati. The government passed the Sati Prevention Act in 1987. According to this law, not only performing sati, but also encouraging it, glorifying it, erecting monuments were considered crimes. But still, some communities consider sati sacred. Even in the internet age, in some forums and social media groups, comments are written like, true sati happens by one's own will and this woman is a goddess. Some communities still see sati as a matter of honor. Can you believe it? In the 21st century, there are still mentalities that consider a woman burning herself sacred. In your opinion, is this tradition or is it murder? Are traditions more valuable than human life? Sati shows us humanity's darkest face. It shows how tradition, religion, and social pressure can take away a woman's life. But it also reminds us that change is possible. Laws changed, awareness increased, and many women are now free from this oppression. Today in India, there are countless organizations fighting for women's rights. And thanks to this, new generations are now questioning this tradition. But there is still much to be done. Because a woman's value is not in dying with her husband, but in living her own life freely. We all need to raise our voices against social pressure, against oppression done in the name of traditions. What do you think about this? Can traditions ever take precedence over human rights? Or should some traditions be buried in history? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Because together we're creating awareness. Human history may be full of pain, but learning from these pains is in our hands. See you in the next video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps us create more content. See you in the next one.